Welcome to the Become a Business Badass podcast. My name's Miranda Pierce.
I'm Dr. Tim Pierce.
This is my first guest, and I'll be honest, I just clicked play a couple seconds ago, and I said, welcome to the Business Balls podcast, and I made him laugh. So it just shows you that at the moment, this podcast is very rudimentary, but I'm doing it anyway. We're showing up anyway. And today we've got a really interesting topic, because the whole thing is, Tim and I are always having these kind of business conversations. We're always asking ourselves questions like, how can we get better? What's the kind of mindset that you need to show up and be persistent over the long term in business? And this morning I had a really interesting comment on a Facebook ad of mine. And the person said, it was for a webinar that I'm doing. And the webinar is at 8 p.m. on a weeknight. UK time. And the person said, I would love to come to this. It's a marketing webinar that helps you get more customers for your aesthetics business. And she said, I'd love to come, but that's wind down time for me. And I'll be honest, this comment stopped me in my tracks because it's so far from where we've come and how we've built our business, which is, in one respect, too much kind of hustle, and that's impacted us. Working all hours, me doing all-nighters. So part of me kind of admires the fact that this aesthetic clinician has a wind down time in her life, but where's the line? Like, watching a free webinar at 8 p.m. at night, should people watching this here now and us, should we be completely switched off by then?
Well, there's some interesting things, I think, in this around boundaries, because you're right. If we look back at our history, in fact, I think probably one of the reasons that comment struck you is because we essentially the only boundary we had were kind of purely physical ones, not even all the physical ones. You went into labour at work. Maybe you should have taken the week off.
Maybe I should have had wind down time. Bit of maternity leave.
So I certainly don't, but at the same time, if you're highly motivated, like you can't whine about not having a good business and have wind down time. Like you do have to make sacrifices. I mean, I don't think there's anyone alive who's started a solopreneur style business and worked exactly 9 till 5 and never thought about her business after 5 o'clock and only started thinking about it at 9 o'clock. That's just not how it works. There is a competition where the business, especially in the early days, especially if you're hungry, probably does eat into the rest of your life. But I, at the same time, think there's absolutely wisdom in taking it back. And I've heard you advocate this many times as well with clinicians who, they find themselves working basically 18-hour days, but they're not fully booked. They're spread out over, seeing patients at 10 o'clock and one at 9 o'clock and a 7-hour break and then another one. And you can concentrate all those patients down into a Thursday and people will come. Like, they do rearrange their schedule for you.
But I actually think, though, evening work, like 8 p.m. type evening work, tends to be more the marketing, the admin, all that kind of stuff. And to me, I think everyone watching this here now has 3 jobs. Most people watching this here now, they have 3. You have the job of being a public health clinician, the job of literally injecting people's faces, and then the other job, which is very significant, there's no getting away from it, which is the marketing, the admin, replying to comments, complaints, all that, buying stuff, from the pharmacies, like.
And there's the 4th job, which is usually being, we're speaking mainly to our audience as being a mum and being a wife or a partner. And that's all really important. You don't get away. Something I remember noticing early on is you don't get away with it just because you have an excuse. Like, it's not okay to be a bad husband just because you have an excuse about why you're a bad husband. Like, you still pay a price. And that's why I do like, in some ways, this idea of a really hard boundary, because life doesn't let you put all your eggs in one basket for too long. Like, eventually it will claw it back through some kind of pain.
On that point, is there something that we could talk about that's practical that people listening could maybe use around? Now, it's different for us because we were both in the business, but if someone's watching this here now and their partner is not in the business, could you do a deal where you say for 18 months, I'm going to go hard and I would like support on Thursdays and I'm going to watch webinars and, Tuesdays and whatever. And I might be a bit of a shit partner. I don't know. I mean,
well, I think if it's clear that your business is benefiting the family unit, then it's easier to put up with. And so, what I would suggest is having firstly have as clear as you can a decent business plan, so that the partner can see that this effort is going to equal some form of reward. You got to bring them in with it, and maybe have a goal that they share that's part of it. Like taking the kids to Disneyland or something might be one way of keeping someone on board, but there is absolutely, and we've felt this way at various points as well, which is when all the energy is basically flying out of the household, it can create a sense of uncertainty. So you need to make sure that they can see how it's going to flow back in, or that you segmented time where they know that you're fully focused on just them and you're not, which is hard because I get like this as well with a new project or a new idea. I sometimes get really obsessed with it, and to like everything gets faded out. I get tunnel vision, and it doesn't even have to be a big important project. Like currently we're just moving house, and I had a really productive day yesterday, and I want to keep going. I felt like that this morning, like this obsession with just achieving those tasks. So you get like that in your business, and if it's fine for a day, it's probably fine for a week. It gets, when it's 2 weeks and 3 weeks, it just becomes normal life, and then there's this friction point that starts to come where it was like, I don't actually want my life to be like this all the time, and then you have to with your partner renegotiate.
So just setting aside partners then, because I am imagining that what she said was, she said, I would love to attend this webinar, but 8 p.m. is wind down time for me. But so that almost sounds like self-care. Now I'm, in recent years, very recent years, like as in the last year, very interested in this concept of self-care. And so I was kind of, in some respects, I'm like, you go girl, you get that self-care. But I believe, very happy to be challenged, that this last year has been my year of self-care, because almost exactly a year ago, I did the biggest launch of my career. And so I guess you could say I'd reached a level of, for want of a better word, success. I'd hustled my way through to success. And then I looked at my life again and I said, what does balance look like? Now, I have no idea where this woman is in her career, but I just find it hard to believe that you could be a small business owner and you could be having me time from 8 p.m. Am I just being a dick?
Oh, I think you can do that. I actually think that neither one of us are particularly good at this. If you look at our business partner Lee, like he was busy learning French and playing the piano in the evenings.
But he doesn't have kids, which
that makes a difference. But he's always, it's not just about him not having kids. Like he's always had a value around like there's my life and there's my business. And of course he also does long hours when it needs to be done.
And he is very productive in the day, isn't he? Maybe that's the secret.
Well, this is one of the benefits I think there is with good boundaries, which is if you don't trust yourself that work ends at a certain time, then work never ends, and there's less of a driving force to be productive. And I've certainly felt this. I've become aware of it much more this year actually, where you tell yourself the story, I've got all day, and so you feel like less stressed about it, and then you just plod along. Whereas I know with creating some of our content that if I've got a hard boundary of someone turning up to film me, the last hour is where I do 80% of the work.
That's called Parkinson's law.
So the most productive is the last minute, and so there is definitely something in hard boundaries that makes you more productive, and that would be the flip side of it. So there's two sides of this. One is you could look at that comment as I prioritize comfort over progress, which is a bit like I think your initial reaction, because we would sacrifice anything and get up at 2 a.m. to watch something that we thought was going to move our business forward at a certain point. I wouldn't do that now. But the other way is this is someone who is highly productive. I mean, who knows? But they could be highly productive because they have absolute boundaries. And they know that when it's 5 minutes to 5, they've got 5 minutes left to work. They haven't got another phone call to the partner and another hour and a half where they just plod along. And it makes them driven on a minute-to-minute basis better. So yeah, I'm actually not someone who naturally is good with boundaries. I run late in all my GP appointments. I always run late in aesthetic appointments. Patients are fine with it because I give them tons of my time and attention. But there are downsides to it. So there's definitely something in that balance. Dr. Sharon used to work with us, equally thrilled patients, but never used to run late. And I always used to be amazed how well she would do it. So I think
she'd do big treatments as well, wouldn't she?
Yeah, so I think she would quite often not do as many treatments as I would do in a day. But at the same time, that's not always the goal. So certainly patients who like that order, and for Sharon, I'm sure she was doing it partly just to have that sense of control in her day, which I was forsaking and thinking I'll catch it up later. And I would often do that. But it doesn't mean it's, there's definitely a balance to be struck. And long term, absolutely boundaries are vital. You have to have that organized structure. Otherwise, you basically get burnt out.
So I'm super interested in this idea of long term, though, especially because I've been through this. And just thinking about people watching us here now, they were probably thinking, well, they're hustling, so they're watching webinars at 8 p.m, absolutely. They probably might even be injecting at 8 p.m, all the things. And they might even be thinking to themselves, I'm not getting the results yet. So Miranda, it's all right for you with you kind of, or I had, so let's say, it's a bit complicated, but let's say I was basically hustling for 4.5 years. Pure balls out, like 2 Facebook Lives a week at all hours, like 11 at night, wildly consistent. We used to do a Tim Ander Facebook Live at 10 p.m. every Wednesday, didn't we? And we were so consistent. And after 4.5 years, I really got it back in success. But people might be watching this here now thinking, how long do I have to be in these chains, these shackles of hustle? When can I start winding down?
Well, there was something else we've spoken about off air, is that when you were doing that, you didn't actually have a plan other than you had an instinct, but not a plan. And I would argue that a plan makes it much more sustainable and much more tolerable for everyone around you.
Tell us what you mean by that. Having never implemented it myself.
Yeah, but I mean, you can, in retrospect, you can see what might have been better, which is I'm developing a personal brand in this area so that I can have the kudos to teach in this area the things that I most value teaching. And I will do that in 2 years' time. I will launch a course, or I will, whatever it is that you're going to do. But I think, it's unusual for you, because I don't think maybe I'm wrong about this actually. Maybe a lot of people in our sector do have an instinct that they just want to do this type of role, and they don't actually. I think a lot of people probably don't have a vision of, I want to earn £150,000 a year.
They'll be like me. I am my audience. Everyone here watching this now probably doesn't. Well, not everyone. I'd say probably the majority won't have some crazy plan.
So they have an instinct and they just start moving towards it, and then the plan forms along the way. So that's fine. And in fact, I had this recently with. I was trying to help a friend start a sweet shop in South Africa, and I realized she had this instinct that she knew how to sell sweets to a certain demographic that she understood, mums with kids, or it wasn't even that. It was more she'd had some experience with these what are they, like a raffle prize for charity. So she knew she could do that, and she would move towards doing that. And I was trying to make it digital, like. Tell me the maths, like how much does each sweet cost, and how much do you put in a packet, and how many do you need to sell to have a lifestyle that you actually want? And we never quite got to that stage, unfortunately. But that's what I mean by a plan. Like you need. It's no good just having the heart. You've got to have the maths that go with it, because when you've got I think Gary Vee calls it the quant. But when you've got the quantities that you need, backed up by the love that you want to bring to whoever you want to serve, then it's much more easy to structure all your work and know that you're going to get something back from it at some point, other than just the experience. Because the experience is great, but it doesn't replace the stress in your marriage, and it doesn't replace not seeing your kids. At some point you need it all to be part of your life plan.
I think you just made a really an interesting light bulb has just gone off in my mind, which is that if you carry on like I did, just being drawn by heart, then actually there's a real danger that the heart will burn out. Now, I didn't, but I think I just got lucky. Honestly, I think I just got lucky. I think I was just so heart driven. But I think I wouldn't judge anyone who's watching this here now who actually has been burned out thinking, what am I doing? It's 8 at night. I should be winding down. And instead
there are lots of aesthetic clinicians who burn out because they put their patients ahead of themselves. I think that's not rare at all. I think it's actually so. This is one of the hardest things that you realize when you first start, which is if you slot into someone else's clinic, it can be okay. Someone else's business, the boundaries are created by someone else. But if you've never had to create all the boundaries yourself, and you're an amenable person, which I include myself as an amenable person, you naturally give of yourself. That's kind of what amenable is. Like I'm not that comfortable with it, but I'll do it for you so that you're not cross or disappointed.
like prices.
Prices, discounts, the hour that you see them, staying late, starting early. I mean, we used to bend over backwards. I mean, I think it probably did us a lot of good, but at the same time, not me personally, because but I used to go out at all hours to see patients after work, and got our business going. But it was eating away at me and all the other things I want to do with my life, and it was definitely not going to continue forever. So there's definitely a battle where you have to be deciding what are you happy with doing. I think I've forgotten what the initial target was.
I was saying that if you're just drawn by heart, you might burn the heart out.
Yeah, so you do get burnt out. So I say that with prices, it's one of the things that you like that I've said recently, which is that if you don't price with your head, you can't treat with your heart. And that's another way of saying if you don't have really good boundaries that you're happy with, your heart will burn out. Because it's just not worth it to you. And that's not obvious immediately. It gets obvious over the weeks and months, and you start to resent your patients. I always look out on the forums when you see people resenting their patients. Mostly it's because they're not strong enough to put a boundary down.
Yes. And then the other way it would manifest is just procrastinating. So obviously I'm always thinking about marketing. Now if that person is not willing to come to a marketing webinar at 8 p.m, I'm thinking she ain't willing to do one Instagram post a day, which is what I believe we should do. And I mean, maybe she is, maybe she's rocking out, maybe she's batch creating. I don't know, but I think that that part of a big reason why people procrastinate is they just feel like I'm not getting anything back from this. I'm not seeing the benefits. And I think that's where a plan would come. Because if you had a rudiment, and you're not talking a reams of paper, are you?
We've never had a business plan like that. I mean a high, like what do you call it? The oil barrel thing you talk about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's just knowing that there's a limit on it. There's a scale. Like there's the back of the envelope business plan. I need to see 10 patients a week in order to be paying for my premises and making enough money to save to take the kids to Disneyland or whatever it is. If my average spend is X, it's like 5 numbers that you're heading towards that will make the difference. That is at least an important milestone on your path.
Yeah.
As simple as that. Because then, and it's also great if you can say to your husband, look,
yeah,
I've got so far 4 patients a week. I need to get to 10 patients a week, and then I'm profitable. So I'm going to really go for it until I get to 10 patients a week. Then it's much easier for him to, okay, she's working late again. I'm watching Netflix by myself again.
You could even do it like a chart on the fridge. Couldn't you? Imagine how much better that would be to know where for your partner to know where you were at.
So the important thing is though, so that's quant, isn't it? And it's also, you could relate it to money, which means something to someone who isn't just trying to prove themselves to themselves, because a lot of clinicians are trying to prove themselves to themselves.
Well, which is a good thing.
Yeah, but it's not. But it's hard to understand from the outside when you're like, but you've got a perfectly good job in the NHS and used to come home and relax at the weekend, and now you're working. Yeah. And so I think you need for those other people in your life to make it real for them in some way.
One thing I would just say as well as part of the plan is about going for hustling with the biggest leverage item as well. Now I don't know if I've really lived by this in the past, but I think building a social media following is an asset. Like an actual, like people should put it in their will, people should put it in their balance sheet. Like we know this, don't we, now that we have it? And I think if you could be hustling at night, building that community where people really feel online that you're helping them, then that's a high leverage item. Now, if you are, I'm just trying to think of a low leverage item. If you're spending all your admin time, or all your non-clinical and non-day job time, making sure that every single thing in your line in your spreadsheet for your expenses is wildly neat, and you're just OCD about it, like, is that really going to give you the return on investment? And I think that's just procrastinating.
Yeah, or the more sophisticated, we call this professional, we haven't talked about this for years actually, but professional procrastinating is where from the outside it is unquestionably a good thing to do, but it's not the really big important thing you're supposed to do. The typical one in our industry is learning for learning's sake. And I've obviously learned a lot, and I'm always learning, and I love learning, I value it, but I'm usually learning to implement. It's going to be useful to me somehow. I'm not just learning for some kind of level up in personal status or so that I can feel more secure. Like, I want to actually teach it, or I want to actually use it. And so yeah, you want to make sure that you're not just endlessly learning out of insecurity. You've got to be learning to implement.
Okay, so again, wanting for practical takeaways, is there some kind of empowering question that people can ask themselves? So let's go back to that woman. She's got her wind down time, which I think we're basically saying we admire the boundary. We're still a bit incredulous that you could do that early on in a business, but anyway, she's about to potentially cross her boundary. What impact with my webinar, which, by the way, absolutely will bring her the returns. But anyway, how can she ask herself an empowering question? Is this just busy work? Is this going to leverage?
Well, you can't possibly give her any advice without knowing her circumstances. But the question is she satisfied with her business and the rate that it's growing? And if she is, she might want a very slow burning business and a comfortable life, like doing as a hobby. Like, there are people who want to do it that way. That's fine. Like, good luck to them. If she's really hungry and she's dissatisfied and she wants to leave the NHS, and when she's not winding down, she's resenting her day and she won't go to the webinar, then yeah, the truth is you do need to put a ton of effort into growing a business. It's not something that you can do leisurely. So then you would have to challenge it, because the biggest risk for me is that's not really wind down time. It's an excuse, like, as in she's saying it's out of my hands. There's a boundary there. I can't cross it, so I'll never know how to grow my business, which means, thankfully, I don't, subconsciously, I don't have to take the risk to learn something new, to try and grow something. And instead, what I can say is I don't have time. So I don't know. We're making all this stuff up because I don't know what her situation is. I'm hoping she's super successful when she's not winding down. But it wouldn't be a big surprise if there was a lot of dissatisfaction in other parts of the day. And this is because we come across this all the time, people who blame an external factor for why they're not succeeding, like, I couldn't do it because I don't have enough time, or I didn't get the support I needed from my training, or whatever it is. And in actual fact, there are people who fly who don't have any of that stuff. So that's the boundary we're talking about. Like, which side of this is it? We don't know for sure, but I would say you want to be making sure that people are not blaming externalities for their shortcomings, because that's a bottomless pit that leaves you useless, unable to do anything, saying that the world is messed up and I never got the chances everyone else got, which is very tempting because it means you're off the hook in your own eyes.
Yeah, maybe it all comes back down to your goal. It sounds like that's what you're saying, is that, and I didn't have one, interestingly. I was just being led by the heart. Maybe I would have earlier if I'd had a goal and the heart.
Well, I think you did have a goal. I don't think you necessarily articulated it. And I don't think it was necessarily a business goal. I think it became a business goal.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
Series. But yeah, but something practical for people watching is, when they come to the point, they're making the decision, do I relax and watch a box set? Whatever, do I spend time with my kid? I'm not being facetious, like, honestly, which is the best use of your time? I think it's about just momentarily coming back to a really simple and easy to remember goal in your mind, which might be what you put on your fridge for your partner. So in 18 months time, I'm going to have 5 patients a week, and I know roughly I need to do X number of Instagram posts. I mean, it's not as simple as that, but and I need to hook up with 5 salons and whatever, and then I'll get my goal. And then you can answer go on then. Do you know what? One more Instagram post tonight, and then I'll watch the box set at 10 p.m.
Yeah, but one final thing I'll say in terms of advice is you don't get let off the hook in any of your other domains of responsibility. Your kids get older, and if you're not around, they grow. Resentment might grow. Like you don't just they're not going to say, "Oh, Dad was working really hard." They're just going to say, "My dad wasn't around." And that's one of the things that I worry about. Same with your partner. You can definitely take cash out of the bank, but it's a debt, and you need to look after your relationships. You also need to build your business, because if you put all those other relationships ahead and you never try, then you build up resentment for other people who stopped you having a business. So unfortunately, nothing gets let off the hook, and this is where the boundaries are so valuable. Is that you need to be trying to meet all your obligations in all these roles, or at some point something breaks. So don't let it go too long putting everything in all the energy in one basket. Try and spread it out. Know what your roles are. It's usually pretty simple. You want to be a partner, a parent. Maybe it's a daughter or a son, a good family member. You need to have time to relax. Your comfort zone. We talk a lot about getting out of your comfort zone, but wind down time is essential, because you can't live outside your comfort zone. You get exhausted. You need to go back and get those other needs met. And then you absolutely need those times when you're just focusing on the thing that you dream of, that matters to you, that doesn't matter to anyone else yet. You need to go after that too. So it's all those baskets need to be filled, and the temporary imbalance can't go on forever.
It sounds like compartmentalizing.
Yeah. I don't think you don't have to do that if you're 21 and single, in the same way as you do when you've got, at our age, we've got all sorts of things going on. But you do need some awareness of these different roles and when to focus on them.
Good luck to the wind down lady. Sounds like she's got her life sorted. Right, my loves, let me know in the comments what you think. I'm so genuinely interested. Are you working at 8 p.m. on whether it be on all of those aspects we discussed? Oh, here comes. Hi, gorgeous.
Are you working, and are you happy at 8 p.m? Because if you are, that's fine. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be someone else's model of when to work.
Come in. It's our little boundary. A little 6-year-old boundary. Hello, gorgeous.
It is actually something I learned in lockdown, which is I could not. My dad boundary had to override my work boundary, because I never wanted to be one of those grumpy dads who turns around and tells you to go away. So we have a value of, like you've just seen, parenting comes first.
I don't know. I don't know if I covered myself in glory all the time during lockdown with that, but I felt like they were a partnership with me.
I mean, yeah, I definitely had to lay down boundaries, but I would never be grumpy when the shed door would bang. That's what used to work in the outbuilding. Boom, boom, boom. Would always open it and get a hug, no matter what I was busy working on.
Right. That was a very apt end to the podcast. Let us know, what do you hustle at night? And also subscribe to the YouTube channel for my rudimentary. No, don't press the button; it'll go off.
What do you say then? Like and subscribe.
Oh yeah, you do the call to action.
He's only just woken up, not bedhead.
Like and subscribe. Bye guys.